Hi, everybody, and welcome. My name is Kirsten, and together with my sister, Lynn, we created the Anti-Racist Table, which is a multidimensional platform aimed at helping people bring anti-racism into life as a daily practice. If this is your first time, I'm just gonna tell you a little bit about our 30-day challenge, which is our flagship free challenge that we use to help educate people, help create empathy, and promote action. This space here, Flowers for the Table, is a Black affinity space, a place for us to come together, to draw strength, to celebrate, and just to be together collectively. One other thing I wanted to mention about our 30-day challenge is that we're very excited that we've upgraded our platform recently, and it makes it a lot easier to self-pace. We have people doing our challenge in communities, with their workplaces, with their congregations, and it's a great way to bring this work to a group and to work together. And I'm sorry, just a second, we're having a technical, looks like we're having a technical issue. So just bear with us with the presentation. Let me just see if, hold on, just a second. Okay. Okay, Lynn's trying to put up her PowerPoint. So in the meantime, while she's doing that, maybe I will go ahead and, let's see. Lynn usually starts with the land acknowledgement, but I can go ahead and, let's see, it looks like she's got it worked out. Okay, and this is the slide that just sort of accompanies what I was just telling you all about. You can visit us at the antiracist.com and see all of our resources. We have these free conversations around the table, and like this event, Flowers for the Table, that you can participate in. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lynn to do the land acknowledgement.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on this lovely Sunday afternoon, wherever you're zooming in from. Let's see. Oh, just lost my PowerPoint. So I'd like to acknowledge the land that we are living on, and oh goodness. This is a land acknowledgement that's inspired by Ruth King. She is an African-American mindfulness practitioner who inspires us every day. So I would like to acknowledge my ancestors and ask them to stand with me as I acknowledge the native lands on which I dwell, which is Washington, D.C. It was colonized, and the colonizers gave it the name Washington, D.C. It actually is the Piscataway land and the Anacostan land, the Anacostan people. We acknowledge their continued connection to this land, to the water, and to this community. We acknowledge their spiritual labor and all of the traditional custodians of this land. We pay respect to their spiritual labor. We pay respect to the enslaved African people who were bought, sold, and all of their descendants that were here. And we want to acknowledge also the folks that are also in captivity, their spiritual labor as well. We acknowledge them as well. And we would like to take some time to also appreciate all of our elders and our teachers who are teaching us every day that we learn from, as well as the young people today that are teaching us. May we all remember that we're all kind of in an aspiration to be free in heart, mind, and body. And yes, here ends the land acknowledgement. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I'm going to introduce our guest. We are very excited to have Julie Lythcott-Haims back here, second time to be with us. Julie is a writer, speaker, human who believes in humans and is deeply interested in what gets in our way. She is the New York Times bestselling author of the Anti-Helicopter Parenting Manifesto, How to Raise an Adult. Highly recommend it. Her TED Talk on the subject has more than 5 million views, and in 2020, she became a regular contributor with CBS This Morning on parenting. Her second book is the critically acclaimed and award-winning prose poetry memoir, Real American, which illustrates her experience as a Black and biracial person in white spaces. And we're going to talk about this book today. A third book, Your Turn, How to Be an Adult, will be out in April 2021. Julie is a former corporate lawyer and Stanford dean, and she holds a BA from Stanford, a JD from Harvard, and an MFA in writing from California College of the Arts. She serves on the board of Common Sense Media and on the advisory board of leanin.org. She is also a former board member of the Foundation for a College Education, Global Citizen Year, the Writer's Grotto, and Challenge Success. She volunteers with the hospital program No One Dies Alone. Julie lives in the San Francisco Bay Area with her partner of over 30 years, their young adults, and her mother. And with that, welcome back, Julie. Thank you so much for being here. And we'll give you your opportunity to do your land acknowledgement now.
Kirsten and Lynn, thank you for creating the anti-racist table. I think all the spaces I've been invited to join over this past year, yours is somehow quite different and unique in tone and tenor, feeling, purpose. So it's really an honor to be here. And I want to thank everyone who's decided to make this a part of their Sunday. I just want to thank you for doing that. I am here in the San Francisco Bay Area on the peninsula, Silicon Valley, as we call it, the town of Palo Alto. This was originally the land of the Ramaytush Ohlone people. And I acknowledge that we are here without their permission. And I appreciate that this is a space where we can talk about these things.
Thank you so much. You know, here we wanted to kind of kick things off with the moment that we're in right now. And with, you know, it's been quite a year. And even since we first had you on in September, just the events that have unfolded. And you talk about, well, before I get to that, you know, the Capitol insurrection, the inauguration, the moments that we find ourselves in now, it really feels like, you know, not since the Civil War and the Civil Rights era have we been so polarized and have so much wrapped up in ideology around race, religion, and politics, that we seem to be at this real tipping point. And that brings me to your poem, which we're going to put up on the screen for you. This land is my land too, to just, you know, help us understand, you know, what your thoughts are on where we are in this moment. And as Black people, as we're, you know, we've come together today to draw strength from each other, but just sort of recognizing where we are in this collective moment.
Thank you for this opportunity to read this poem, which I wrote in 2012. One of the things that I find so disturbing in our current moment is the incessant opinion that nobody saw this coming. I think those of us on this call saw this coming. When we're people of color or Jews, we don't have the luxury of not noticing the growing anger and ire of white supremacists. So I wrote this poem close to 9 years ago about what I felt was happening in America. And I'll read it, and then maybe we can talk a little bit about this moment. This land is my land too. Here is going on a war. There is war on going on here. Called him nigger, called him liar, hung Clint Eastwood chairs from southern trees, blue, red, black, white, 99, 1, stars and bars, stars and stripes, invisible. We may mass the troops a missing Sunday mornings, ammunition stack-piled on a stock of Bibles, but just listen to the smalling voice of fearful white people. I'm telling you, stand up. They are not going to stand for this. Take this sitting down. So this was my effort to put together the clues that I was seeing. This moment, January 6th, 2021, was on its way. I saw them buying guns in record number. I saw them joining hate groups in record number. I saw what they were doing to Black children and adults by way of gunning us down and getting away with it. I saw them demean the office of the president when Barack Obama was holding that office. I saw them question whether he was even an American. And so I'm not surprised that we're here in this moment. And I think our job is to be incredibly aware of what's happening, but also to not let it tear us within ourselves apart. Because if there's anything we know about Black folk, it is that we are incredibly resilient and that we have managed to weather and survive and love ourselves and be resilient despite every single effort over these 400 plus years on this continent to tear us down. So I think what I'm trying to do is balance this sort of fierce awareness and fear around them with this incredible optimism and joy about our resilience and our liberation. To hold these things simultaneously in my awareness and in my spirit, I feel like that's my work in this present moment and the work we all need to do.
Thank you. That's, I think, holding those two tensions at the same time, you know, it's a critical piece of where we are right now. And along those lines, in your memoir, Real American, you there's a section where you talk about things that you wished you had asked your father. And I'm on, this is chapter 15, page 239. And I'm going to read that passage. What does it mean to belong in America? And what does it mean to be Black? And how do we live under the drainage pipe of white supremacy with its drip, drip, drip of poison into our hair that oozes down into our eyes, into our nostrils, into our ears, into our mouths, our pores, our bones? How do we coexist with these white people, fearing and hating us without fearing and hating ourselves? How do we laugh? How do we stop seeing their fear and their hatred as a mirror that shows us who we are? How do we look into a real mirror and love what we see? This piece captures so much of the struggle and the lived experience. Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Will you remind me what page that's on? That I really,
Sure.
it's funny how,
239.
yeah, it's, people watching may find it odd that I, the author, am about to say this, but you know, I haven't revisited that passage in so long. I wrote this book in 2016 and 2017, and I've done hundreds of presentations on the book, but I don't read that passage. And now I'm grateful that you have returned it to my consciousness, because I do very much want to read that. Wow, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, as so many writers well before me have written, the Negro is the invention of white people. They created us as the other. They created us and put us down to feel superior. Um, and as long as we allow them to be the dominant majority in this country, allow isn't the right word. As long as they have this power, who we are in their eyes plays a huge role in how we see ourselves, particularly when we're young. You know, I grew up as this, and I want to acknowledge the three of us who are on this call are incredibly light-skinned Black people. Whatever we've experienced is a fraction of what darker skinned brothers and sisters experience. And yet the lighter we are, then we get these different experiences about people not realizing we're Black, wondering what we are, and we might hear these horrible things uttered around us because people don't realize precisely what and who we are. But anyway, we when we're young, we learn who we are through how other people treat us, the eyes of other people, the body language, the way they behave around and near us tells us whether we're okay or not. And you know, I, as an adult, came to this place of self-love that is from within, that has nothing to do with the look on anyone else's face and or the racism around me. But as a child, I really struggled with that, and as a young adult. And my father, who is my Black parent, an amazing man who was born in 1918 and grew up in the Jim Crow South and endured so much to get up and out of that and to become a college educated person and a physician and all of that. Ultimately, the first Black assistant surgeon general in the United States under Jimmy Carter as president. He died when I was 27, and I never had the chance. I didn't know myself in my Blackness while he was alive. I was still in this kind of self-loathing place of just trying to not be called the N-word anymore, you know, just trying to please the white folks. I didn't grow to be that self-loving Black woman until my daddy was long gone. And so, you know, these are the questions I wished I could have asked him then. You know, if we could have had that conversation when I was younger, maybe I could have benefited from his coping strategies, his strength, his resilience around these matters. We didn't talk much about race. I think he was of an era where he was just ignoring them and that and just doing his thing. But I was young and tender and hadn't come up the hard way. And so in many ways, far less resilient than he was. So yeah, that's what that passage is about. You know, how can we love ourselves when what we see in their eyes tells us we should loathe ourselves?
Yeah, and in this moment, you know, we're grappling with that. We're grappling with the white supremacy and the violence that we're seeing around us. And you know, the next section of your book we wanted to talk about, which ties into this, is power and pride. And this is on page 186, where you're really talking about the connection that you have with your history and your ancestors. And we see that really as, I know personally for me that with all the things that have been happening, I feel a deeper connection to my enslaved ancestors and a greater appreciation for what their lives must have been like compared to the opportunities that I have, even in the midst of all of the, you know, the violence and the brutality and the, you know, unfairness and unjustness that continues. So if you wouldn't mind reading, this is on page 186 to 187. I think Lynn put it up on the slides.
Yeah, I've got it.
Okay.
Let me say this first. My book, Real American, this is what I'm reading from, is dedicated to my slave ancestor. One of my siblings did the work, the painstaking work of excavating our ancestors who were brought here as slaves. He did this before the internet existed, or before the internet was a tool we could use to discover our genealogy. So he walked through graveyards, and this is my brother Stephen, who has since long since passed. He walked up the back steps of churches to pour through the records, the handwritten records in South Carolina, where our people were. And so he discovered that we are from a slave named Sylvie. That's as far back as he was able to go. Sylvie, who was a slave in Charleston, South Carolina, who lived on Church Street, whose daughter Sylvia, given to her through rape by her master, Sylvia lived on Henrietta, which is right behind Mother Emanuel Church today. Okay, like my people were there. God. Sylvia, Joshua Jr., Evelyn, George, me. Okay, I dedicate this book to my great grandmother, Sylvie. And this book traces the arc of my development, my psychological development from an innocent child down to the self-loathing place where America taught me to loathe myself by about my teenage years, and finally to this place of self-love. So the book kind of traces this journey over 9 parts. And the part you're asking me to read from is Emerging, which is near the end of the book. And I just want to say that it's coming out of this sort of, it begins like this: an American childhood, becoming the other. These are the parts of the book: desperate to belong, self-loathing, emerging, declaring Black Lives Matter, onward. So we're at this part of the book. So this is from Emerging, which sort of looks like this. Emerging, you can see the header, and then page 186, chapter 9, within the part called Emerging. A history read about in textbooks, literature, poetry, and newspapers, seen in movies and on television, heard in stories, heard in song, becomes mine. I begin to feel one with my ancestor, the slave, to know of slavery's systemic dismemberment of Black agency, debasement of Black men, rape of Black women, destruction of the Black family. Know of the wringing of energy and life out of my forebears, and of how they were then thrown out like trash to litter the ground. To know of the efforts of resistance, rebellion, and escape. To know that those with light skin who passed into the white world left behind community, family, solidarity, and self in joining the white world. To understand that most could not pass and endured wearing the skin God gave them. To know that the promise of God and heaven was at times the only balm. To know emancipation meant freed from ownership by another human, then consigned to a life where skin color equals less than, equals bad, equals thug, equals criminal, equals presumed guilty, equals justifiably frightens whites, equals death. Do you want me to keep going? Okay. To know we've fought and died for America since its inception on this soil and on foreign soil, have liberated others in the name of America's ideals, only to return home and still be called nigger. To know of the brief sunlight of Reconstruction, like Greenwood in Tulsa. To know of the Black leaders, including my own ancestors, who began to shape a new way forward for us. To know of the rise of the Ku Klux Klan, of Jim Crow, of the uniquely American practice of hanging adults and children from trees, of the economic, social, and psychological re-enslavement of Black people, of the new enslavement that is mass incarceration. To know why a rational, educated, hardworking Black man living in the 20th century hated that false marker of independence, that tribute to a time when our people were chained like dogs and cattle, the 4th of July. To see the face of Emmett Till, the child murdered because he may have winked his eye at a white woman found bloated like a dead frog in a Mississippi stream in 1955. To see Emmett's 14-year-old face and see my own. To see my son. To hear South Carolina's Susan Smith claim in 1994 that a Black man carjacked her vehicle with her 2 small boys in their car seats in the back seat and see this set off a nationwide manhunt for Black men, and to learn that Susan Smith herself had strapped her boys into their car seats, put her car in neutral, and let it roll into a lake where her two small boys drowned slowly. To see white people not comprehend the psychological toll this takes on all Black people, this brutal imagination, as Cornelius Eady calls it. To see the face of James Byrd Jr. chained to the back of a pickup truck in Jasper, Texas in 1998 and dragged along an asphalt road for 3 miles, still conscious until his head was severed from his body. To find a home in Black America. Though later, when Trayvon Martin is murdered and he looks to me just like my son, to know an even deeper we, a searing pain, a surer Blackness.
Wow. Oof.
I really appreciate you reconnecting me with my own language. It's been a long time since I've read that even to myself. And boy, is it pertinent right now, isn't it? You know, if I may say, what is, I think, most terrifying for me about the current moment is that we have lost a grip on what facts are. Thanks to Donald Trump and all who pander to him. There's a swath of Americans, millions of people, tens of millions, as it turns out, who actually believe falsehoods, right? The election was not stolen. No judge agreed with any lawsuit saying that there was any voter fraud. Judges who are conservative judges, perhaps appointed by Trump himself, refused to say, yes, there was fraud. And yet they believe it. They believe falsehoods. And when people cannot agree to a basic set of facts, I fear we have become like Israel and Palestine. I don't know a lot about the Middle East conflict. I know what the average person knows who keeps up with the news, but I don't know the deep underpinnings, the historical why behind various things. But with that caveat, I will say it feels to me that our American moment now is akin to Israel-Palestine in that each side thinks they are simply responding in a logical, justifiable way to the bad action of the other. We have lost any sense of who started this. We have lost any sense of we can all agree to this. We never reconciled with our racially violent history of stealing the land of the Native Americans and committing genocide upon them, of enslaving Africans and forcing them to build this country and its economy. We never reconciled with that. So there isn't even a truth, kind of that lodestone of truth that we can all say, okay, but back at the beginning, this is who we are. And we are trying to be a more perfect union and undo the damage that was wrought in that creation of this country. We haven't done that. The civil rights movement was an effort to do that. And it seemed like we were getting there, but this violent refusing to listen, refusing to see, refusing to care backlash by white folks who feel unseen, unheard, frightened, that their America somehow is being stolen, right? I understand that they're afraid because there are so many more people of color now, and people of color are getting opportunities, and we're getting more rights, and we're being seen in media, and it threatens them. I get it. But it doesn't, they don't have to fear that we're going to do to them what they did to us, right? I think when I ask myself what underpins their fear, it's got to be that. Oh no, right? We're no longer going to be in the majority. What's going to happen to us? And they're right to be afraid because of the atrocities committed by them as a group against us. But all we seek is our own liberation. All we seek is equality. All we seek is a life where we can be treated with dignity and kindness, right? That's who we are as people. That is our strength. That is our resilience. And anyway, so I just wanted to say that was on my mind in response, I think, to the prior question. Just wanted to offer that before we went too much further.
Well, thank you, Julie. That was such a powerful passage. And I felt like, when I first began listening to it, I just felt, so many emotions of kind of sadness and pain. But then, as you continued on with kind of seeing all of these things and, knowing all of these different things and saying, all of these things, I just felt like there was this empowerment and this kind of, you know, like stepping into, to all of those different, terrible, images and just like drawing strength from them. I just felt like empowered by the end of it that, yes, this is who we are and we're resilient, and we're powerful, to be able to stand here today after all of that has happened just shows, just how much we really can step into our power. But to also just talk about what you were saying about the moment that we're in right now, we just had a conversation with Professor Liliana Mason and her book, Uncivil Agreements. And she was talking about statistically how, as a nation, Republicans and Democrats really are not that polarized in terms of our policy positioning, but it's this identity hatred that, is what is the divide, this, and it really has to do with this racial hatred. And that, it does feel like we're almost at a point of a breaking point of a civil war, where it's the us or them, who's going to be able to win, and are we going to be able to come to some kind of unity? I do feel like, hopeful with the new administration, and especially having this pillar of, racial and social justice as, kind of a forefront platform policy that he's working on. But I just don't know how much he's going to be able to get done with, the minor majority that we're going to have in the Senate. But it's really a stressful time. So, we have to manifest our own power. And, how do we do that as individuals? Because we are bombarded on a daily basis with this, constant rate of, you're inadequate, you don't match up. So, what do we do to manifest our power? And what does it look like to really step into resiliency? What does that even mean to you, on a personal level? What does that mean for you?
So as I've shared, my journey has been from innocence to this self-loathing place to self-love. And I can't do justice to that process on this phone call. I do encourage anyone listening who has been in that place of self-loathing as a Black person, a person of color, or for any reason, to take a look at my memoir, because I think what I've been told over these last 3 years is it has helped others feel less alone, more seen, and help them heal. So that's an offering. For me, it began with acknowledging the racism toward Black people that lived in my heart. I had been taught that something was wrong with Black folks. I was not taught that by my family, but I was taught that by my media, by my friends, by my society, by my school system. And like many children of color more broadly, I began to believe that something is wrong with us, and acknowledging that. I finally acknowledged that in my 30s to myself. I finally summoned that shame around having brown skin. I pulled it up to my consciousness and I told myself, this is how I feel. And I wept, and telling it to myself. And then I was working with a executive coach, life coach person, telling it to her, rid me of it. Daring to tell it, it was like facing a bully. It was like the bully of racism that said I was less than because of my brown skin had been chasing me since I was 4. And I finally turned around and just faced that bully. I stared it down. I called it out. I said what it was, and it just began to melt away. I know this sounds like a bit of woo-woo or mental jujitsu of some kind. It's a psychological process of acknowledging what is eating away at you. And in the acknowledgement, in the naming of it, you can tame it, you can release it, relieve yourself of it. So that was the starting point, I think, of my journey towards self-love. And it was not then a long journey. It was like, wow, okay, I've done that. The journey leading up to that point was long and painful, but then there I was, free and liberated in my own mind. That's where liberation begins, within ourselves. We can't ask anyone else to liberate us. We must liberate ourselves, and then we know we are free, regardless of the circumstance, regardless of how someone else might be treating us, regardless of the laws and rules and policies and injustices. If we are liberated within, then we are free, no matter what. And that then becomes the source of our strength and of our resistance capability and of our resilience. I know why the caged bird sings. Viktor Frankel, let me go to a different community, a different culture. Viktor Frankel, who wrote about surviving the Holocaust, speaks about having paradise within the body, within the heart. When you can hold paradise there, you have a source of endurance, a source of, of strength in enduring what is happening, and seeing that there is a better time coming. So this is ultimately the strength of the human spirit. And I think we Black folks have got it in just heaps and bounds. And it is such a beautiful thing. I want to pay respect and homage to my niece, Sade Lythcott, a Black woman who runs the National Black Theater in Harlem, which her mother, Dr. Barbara Ann Tier, founded 50 years ago. It sits at the corner of 125th and 5th, which I think is Lenox. I'm not a New Yorker. 125th and 5th in Harlem, New York, is this theater devoted to telling the stories and celebrating the lives of African Americans, Black people, the African diaspora. And I went to Sade, my niece, who is, like I said, now the executive director. I went to her in advance of the election. I said, I'm so afraid. I'm so afraid that the white supremacists are coming and they're going to harm people. They're coming, they see this as their last stand, their opportunity to amass these guns that I wrote about in that poem that you asked me to read, to amass their guns and march in the streets. We saw them do it at Charlottesville, Virginia, 2017. They are coming. There will be more. I don't know how many they're going to be. I don't know what cities they're going to be in. I don't know how long it's going to last, but I can see it as if I've already seen the movie. I told her, I just have this clear sense that they're coming. And I said, Sade, I am afraid people are going to lose their lives. And she held me over the phone and she said, Julie, I understand your fear. You are an empath. You care about others, even others you will never know. And I just cried, just feeling seen in that pain. And she said, but let me tell you, what you're saying sounds like it's rooted in our oppression, what they might do to us. And she said, instead, I want to encourage you to root your actions and your words in our liberation, not in our oppression. Yeah. And it was just a shift, a reframe of my thoughts. Yeah. We have no control over what they are going to do, but we have such a great opportunity to be in charge of ourselves. And so what I'm saying about our liberation is this offering I got very recently from, this language is from my niece, Sade, younger than me, wiser than me, an amazing woman, Sade Lythcott, who just allowed me to reframe our present moment and root my work, my words, my rhetoric, my books, in our liberation and joy as Black people. And so that's what resistance and resilience means. It is summoning the pride, the joy, the strength of our ancestors, of fueled with self-love of ourselves in this life, and just let that be what we take with us no matter where we go. And then no matter what they do, we're free.
Yeah, amen. That's definitely our wellspring. I agree with that 100%. Yeah. And in these times, I feel like we need to just tap into all of those different resources that gives us, that centering of beauty and strength and joy and laughter and all of that. That is really what sustains us and is kind of like a little buoy, to kind of get us through this time, everything that we have to wade in. And so I just wanted to know if there are any rituals that you lean on to center your well-being, specifically, any daily rituals or weekly rituals that you find that bring you peace and well-being, that cultivate your own strength, that are just like your personal antidotes that you do for yourself.
I'm working on it. Let's just be frank.
Right.
I wish I had like the most amazing answer and it would go so well with this beautiful imagery that you've got here. But the truth is, I haven't had a good practice of self-care. In fact, I mean, I've made some progress because maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I remember someone asking me, what do you do for self-care? And I said, I really love my work. That's self-care, right? They're like, no, that's not what we're getting at. And so since then, I've become much more mindful of what do I need in order to be my best self? That's what I really think of as kind of what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
And I love to do the New York Times crossword puzzle. There's something about just the challenge. It's a small thing and gets harder every day of the week. And I find actual joy in doing that thing, which may not be what people are expecting, but is very true for me. I've actually begun reaching out to friends more. I have managed to have a career that feels quite successful. I'm very fortunate. I'm very privileged. And I have an amazing marriage to my partner of 33 years. And I feel like I've nourished my marriage and my career, but I had let friendships fall by the wayside. I mean, yes, I have friends, but have I tended to those relationships like a gardener should tend to the flowers and vegetables blooming in the garden? No. So I've set as a deliberate practice to reach out to a set of friends, a small number of people with whom I have deep history, and to just reach out more, ask for phone calls, and spend an hour or two on the phone. And these friend calls, these are new things as of November, and there's probably not it's probably not a coincidence that I chose this in November, as November was becoming its Novemberly self. I sought a connection to humans who know me and love me no matter what. And those conversations have really been a source of sustenance for me, reconnecting to people. I had a friend put it quite bluntly: you put yourself out there to strangers on webinars and, Zoom calls, and you'll have office hours for people who don't know you, yet you're not connecting with friends. What's that about, Julie? And I appreciated that pushback. And I think what it was about was strangers aren't going to ask me questions that make me feel vulnerable. I can be in conversation with strangers, but I'm sort of in control of what I share. But friends who know me more deeply, who know my history, who know where I've been, like it or not, I put up a bit of a wall, or maybe a very thick wall. So I think what I'm saying is, as a matter of centering my well-being, I have discovered that the vulnerability I encourage people to have in my work is something I need more of in my personal life. And daring to pull those walls down, daring to kind of open and just be ready to share, to see and be seen, that has been a practice lately. And I think I'm really being nourished by it. So if anyone needs to hear that, if anyone's feeling like, oh yeah, there's some, I'm not really as in touch with my friends as I wish I was, or as I once was, this is for you. I know some of you are like, I'm good on that front, and I'm happy for you. But if you needed to hear that and something is stirring in you right now, lean into that and ask yourself what's going on for you and what you want to do about it.
Yeah, that is.
Oh, Lynn, wait, I just wanted to mention something about Julie's, I think it was in your newsletter or maybe on your website, you talked about, I really feel like it's a moment of awe and connection. You wrote about, going to watch the sunrise with your mom and your husband and your kids. And it just seemed like it was a moment that brought a lot of joy and wonder. And so anyway, it just seemed like maybe that those are other things people can do, things like that.
Yeah, but
You
I
know,
think it's so important too. Yeah, what you said, Julie, about just, reconnecting with people that know your history, that know you, and that are going to kind of hold you accountable and to be vulnerable, put yourself in a position of vulnerability. And that really is, the bridge to making real connection. And I feel like, especially during this time when we're so disconnected, that it is so important to really prioritize making time for friends. Because, I'm the same way. I can spend, weeks, not talking to the people that I'm closest with and talking, to different people. And I'm like, yeah, that's an important thing to center. So I feel like that's a great ritual to bring back, into the center. So thank you for sharing that with us.
absolutely. And I'll just say to Kirsten's point quickly that the point of the trip to see the sunrise this winter solstice, December 21st, was amid COVID. Obviously, everything has changed. My family has taken it very seriously. My mother lives with it. We all live together. She's 81. I have asthma. So we're taking it very seriously. And our teenagers are too, which is wonderful. My son's 21 now. I shouldn't call him a teenager. And so we were trying to figure out how can we still have joy and wonder, given that we can't go be with friends, we can't have an amazing party in our house, and we can't. And I said, my mantra is, and I think we may get to this, so I won't give away the mantra, but in furtherance of my mantra, of what sort of a reframe, I wanted to find ways to give my family wonder and joy. And I thought, what if we could go see the sunrise on this winter solstice, which is the shortest day, the day with the least amount of sunlight, or the start of the growing amount of sunlight, depending on when it happens in your time zone. I thought, wouldn't it be amazing to watch that sun come up together and let that be a symbol, let that be a talisman, let that be a beacon of hope and optimism for us. And it turned out to be just that. Orchestrating it was a little challenging, getting everybody up early, but my kids and husband, my mother was in on the surprise with me, but my husband and kids were the ones being surprised. And I was just delighted by how something free, a trip to see the sun, brought a lot of joy and wonder.
Yeah, that's amazing. And those sunrises, if you can, will yourself to get up that early, they are so magnificent. So I'd love to see, did you take pictures of it? I'm sure it's not going to do justice.
Absolutely.
Seeing it with your own eyes in person is just, such a treat, but yeah, to see a beautiful California sunrise would be lovely to see. So yeah, that, just speaking, Carson, what you were saying about joy, laughter, and pleasure are so important. How are you incorporating that? Are there any shows you're watching or books you're reading? Who is inspiring you right now? I know I love the idea of the crossword puzzles and, doing that. That sounds like a good, but is there anyone that you're reading right now, or any affirmations or mantras that you are really like living into that are inspiring you on a daily basis you want to share?
As an author, I'm often asked to read other people's books to blurb them or review them. And so I am, just quickly consuming a lot of books that I need to read this month in order to support my fellow authors. I'm going to be in conversation with Anna Malika Tubbs, who's the author of The Three Mothers, Black woman writing about the three Black mothers who raised Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and James Baldwin. It's an amazing book that's part history, part biography, a little bit of memoir thrown in, and really ultimately speaking to the strength and resilience of Black mothers going back through time and up through the present. So I highly recommend that book, and that's brought me a lot of pleasure. Laughter, frankly, is coming from the memes. My 21-year-old son reads out loud. to me and his dad. He's still home with us. Our daughter's back east in college. And other silly things. I get tickled by silly things parents do that, this has nothing to do with race, but like, when parents first started texting and didn't really know how to use technology, those books you can buy or sites you can read, like the screenshots of parents saying absolutely silly, ridiculous things to their younger, to their children. I read those. I found that site, one of those sites a few weeks ago, and I began reading them. And I just was howling with laughter, tears running down my face, laughter. And so it felt so good to be laughing so hard and so much. And we've also started watching comedy shows as a family. Netflix has just so many comedy specials, and we just find people we like and watch them. And everyone's comedy humor tastes are different, so I'm not going to recommend anything, but just go find people you enjoy whose humor is right up your alley and just sit with that and allow yourself to laugh. Laughter is such a healing thing. So we need more of it. Make time for it. It's essential. And frankly, if you've got a primary partner, now I'm going to get a little R-rated. Like if you have a primary partner or partners, people you're with intimately, lean into pleasure, intimacy. We need touch. We need, even in a non-sexual sense, we need body connection. We're suffering from a lack of that given the pandemic. The more we can physically be next to, near, with, cuddling, and then beyond, these things matter. These things are part of the essence of being human. So make time for all of that.
Yeah, exactly. Lovely. Thank you, Julie. That's awesome. Is there any artists or musicians that you're liking to listen to? Are you dancing a lot?
I'm not a dancer. And this gets back to race. I grew up as a Black kid in white spaces. And so I was supposed to be good at basketball and good at dancing. And I think it made me scared to dance. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to say it like that. Mm-hmm. I never enjoyed dancing because I always felt scrutinized. Like I've already said it. So I'm not a dancer. I will dance. I dance in my kitchen, like whatever. But I'm not someone who enjoys dancing. I love watching other people dance. My daughter is a dancer. Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you this, my partner, Dan, and I, we just put on our wedding song. We did it at Christmas and we just did it yesterday. We played our wedding song and danced to it in our house.
So romantic.
And it was so, just 80s.
Now you've got to share the song with us.
It's the love theme to St. Elmo's Fire, which is this instrumental song, and it has a big saxophone finish, which is so 80s. But again, that's intimacy, connection, music, slowing things down. We listen to all kinds of music in our house. Frankly, my husband, son, and I got a lot of joy right before the holidays of watching Hip Hop Evolution, that documentary about with 4 seasons of the development of hip hop. And my son is a huge fan of hip hop. I learned a lot. And actually we painted, if you remember Rapper's Delight, the first rap song to hit the pop charts.
Oh yeah.
Back in 1979, I think. I was this young Black kid at the time, and I heard Rapper's Delight and just was like, wow, what is this? This is amazing. And I loved it. And, but I would go on to have a very white adolescence because we moved. And anyway, I'm staring out the window at this 11-foot tall sign on my house. I'm in my outdoor office right now, so I can see the outside of my house through this window. And we've painted the lyrics to Rapper's Delight on our house,
Oh my God.
The hip hop.
I saw a picture of that. Yeah, that picture's amazing.
Okay, it's on my house. And having this touchstone to a rap song from long ago that began to help me feel, that was really a beacon when I was lost and alone out in the sea of whiteness. Whenever I would hear that song, I felt like Black culture is out there somewhere. Anyway, it's sort of an homage to the Sugar Hill Gang, which isn't an important group in the as I've learned, in the development of hip hop. They were actually sort of posers and wannabes, but that doesn't matter. They were important to me. And now the opening to that amazing song lives 11 feet tall on the side of my house. And that brings me joy.
And that's awesome, because I think a lot of times we always second guess doing things because we're just worried that someone's going to have an opinion and it's not going to be the right thing to do. But like, that's just a perfect testament to you saying, you know what, F what anyone else thinks. I'm going to do what makes me happy. And I feel like we need to all step into that. That's beautiful. Yeah. I haven't been bold yet, so I'm going to try to make a bold step for myself. I think that's very liberating, doing something so bold.
Cool.
Yeah, Lynn, we're winding out close to 3:00, and we want to give Julie a chance to talk about her new book, because she's got a real inclusive
Right. Let me
statement and message and approach with the book. So we want to give her a chance to talk about that.
Yes,
Thank
you
you.
want to share? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I didn't say in response to the last question, my mantra, which is, let's not focus on what we can't do. Let's focus on what we can do. That's kind of a mantra of mine that's bringing me through this American moment, consistent with all the things we've been talking about and very much what was behind the winter solstice trip. My new book is called Your Turn, How to Be an Adult. It's for young adults, 18 to 34, struggling with adulting, for the generation that said, I don't want to adult, I'm terrified, I don't know how, I'm scared. This is me saying, yeah, I get it. That's valid. And I'm here for you. Let's go. And so that's ostensibly what this book is about. But there's a huge subtext to it, which is around inclusion. So as a Black, and I've written a commitment to inclusion that goes with it, where you can learn, this is on my website, you can read about it. Basically, I'm trying to do two things in this book. As a Black writer and reader, I'm tired of white authors of fiction or nonfiction telling us person A, person B, person C, person D who's Asian, person B who's Black or has brown skin, right? That author is telling us, I mean white here, here, and here, even though I'm not going to say it. I'm only going to mention race when it's non-white. I am tired of that. It is time to dismantle that in American publishing. And I do not write that way. If I think race is relevant to the conversation, if anyone's race is relevant, everyone's race is relevant. And so I have written this book that way. All identities are named on these pages. And I've decided, who am I to purport to be an authority on adulting? I've just been an adult. That's the only authority I have, as have myriad of other people. And I've put the stories of over 30 other people in this book to tell how to be an adult. And these 30 people are incredibly diverse as a group, racially, in terms of the gender spectrum, the sexual orientation spectrum, neurodivergent, neurodiverse, people with mental health challenges, people with disease and disability, people with kids, people who are dealing with infertility, dog owners, everybody, liberals, people of all the major religions. It's just my way of saying, you don't dare write a book for all without putting the experiences of all on the page. Yeah. So I know many readers will not get that, but many are hungry for books that do this. And one of the people I profile is profiled around a Black Lives Matter incident he endured as a Black man on an elite, mostly white college campus. And I put that in there. This isn't about Black Lives Matter. It's about adulting. And for Black folks, worrying about incidents with the police is a facet of life. So it's embedded in there as normal as anyone else's story. So that's a little bit of sort of radical deconstruction that I'm trying to do with this book in my life as an author. This is very much, what I'm about. And I hope that readers will resonate with it.
Yeah, can you pre-order it now, or is it available yet?
You can pre-order it. Let me share my screen and I'll pop up how people can find me and it. So there you go. This is my website, Lythcott-Haims.com. All my social handles are Lythcott-Haims. This is the new book, Your Turn, How to Be an Adult. It's pre-orderable. This is a QR code. You can put your phone up to it and get right to that order page. You can screenshot this right now, or you can just remember to Google my name and go to my website, and you'll find how to stay connected with me and how to buy my books.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julie. We
Thank
love
you
you.
for having me to the table. Thank you for honoring me as a flower on the
Yes,
table.
you are a flower.
Grateful and just really love the work you're doing, and I'm honored to be a part of it. And thanks to everyone who watched this for letting me be a part of your journey.
Yeah.
Yes,
And all the people who
thank
will
you.
watch in the future. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Bye.
All right,
Bye.
thank you. Julie, can you hang on 1 minute?
Absolutely.
Thank you.